Hi guys! So excited to be here with you learning again during the year. Over the course of the summer, we put out on the Rabbi Porch, or as we like to call it, the Torah Porch, a little box that said, Ask the Rabbi, with little cards for you to fill out. Now, I don't know if you saw it or not, but some of you definitely filled it out. We got all sorts of questions over the summer, really interesting ones. But unfortunately, we only had time to answer some of them. So I'm excited to keep that tradition going. We're going to do a couple of these questions right here, right now, just for you. And hopefully, we'll get some fun learning out of it. Our first question actually comes from Omer in Solalim. So thank you, Omer, for filling out a question and being brave enough to ask. Omer's question was, what's the difference between the Marieve and the Aravit service? Are they the same? Is there any difference? Why do I hear both of these names used at camp referring to the evening service? Well, it turns out, Omer, it's a really good observation. Marieve and Aravit are actually the exact same service. Both refer to our third service of the day, Shacharit in the morning, Mincha in the afternoon, and Aravit, or Marieve, in the evening. So why the different names? Well, it turns out the word Ma'ariv comes from the first blessing of that service. It goes, Baruch Atah Hashem Ma'ariv Aravim. Ma'ariv. So naturally, it got the nickname. Aravit, on the other hand, literally means evenings. And it's this term that the rabbis refer to in their texts, in the Mishnah, in the Gemara, and in lots of some of those old writings that the rabbis put together, refer to our evening service as the Aravit service. Both names make perfect sense, and so we use both of them today. Just depends on who you ask, what mood you're in, and who you're talking to. Ma'ariv and Aravit, exactly the same. Our next question is actually from an anonymous source. This chanich or chanicha decided not to write his or her name on the sheet. So, to whoever you are, if this is your question, thank you for the question. It's a really good one. The question is, why do Jews go by a lunar calendar, / why do things start at night? Well, we know that in our regular American Gregorian calendar, everything starts during the morning. We start at midnight, we go to midnight, and that's one day. Then the calendar shifts. But in Judaism, we go by a slightly different calendar. We actually call it a luni-solar calendar. It's part lunar, partly goes by the moon, and part solar, partly goes by the sun. Now that's a really tricky thing, exactly how that all works. Lots of math, real complicated. But I encourage you to Google it if it's something you're interested in, or shoot me an email after this video, and I'll go into a little more detail. But to talk about exactly where we get this idea of beginning of night, that's a little simpler. We begin at night because the Torah says so. Now, where does the Torah say that, you might ask? It's actually in the very beginning of Breshit. And for those of you who have Shabbat Mincha, and you get to hear your yumpadumps every single Saturday, you've even heard this phrase, Vayahi Erev, Vayahi Voker, Yom, Sheni, Shlishi, whatever the day is. Vayahi Erev, Vayahi Voker, Yom, and then a number. This is the phrase we see over and over again in the very first chapter of our Torah, the very first chapter of the book Breshit in Parshat Breshit. And it's the line that occurs every time at the end of God's creating something on that given day. It means, and there was evening, there was morning, a first day, a second day, whatever the day is. When God is talking about the day, God first says, there was evening. Then God says, there was morning. This implies that a day actually begins when the sun goes down and ends the next time the sun goes down. And that's not only why we start things at night, but also why our calendar happens to also follow the moon. Our third and final question also comes from an anonymous source. So again, if this was your question, thank you for the question. The question is quite an interesting one, because I'm not even sure I fully understand the question. The question is, can God give people powers? I think what the questioner was asking was, does God give people superpowers? Can we fly or have super strength? And the answer is, kind of, yeah. In fact, our Torah, our Bible, is filled with stories of people who got special powers from God. One of the most famous ones is about Samson, who had super strength. And in fact, his superpower was connected to his hair, believe it or not. If he cut off his hair, he lost his superpower. But if he grew it out, he had his superpower. Sounds like a comic book character to me if I've ever heard one. But we also have other kinds of powers. We have Moses, who with the help of God was able to part the sea, fix plagues, make water come from a rock. We also have people like Solomon, who asked God for ultimate wisdom, for real amazing intelligence to help him make really good decisions, and God grants it. We always think of Solomon as wise King Solomon, even to this day. So the question is, not just can God give people powers, but how about today? Does God still give people powers, or was this something that just happens in the past? Well, I suppose it depends on what we look at as a power. Think about all of those amazing athletes out there. I can't shoot a free throw from the three-point line. Can you? Maybe. I can't be an amazing musician who gets to travel the world and has everyone love them. I think God gives us all superpowers. And part of growing up is finding out what's ours. So let me ask you, what's your superpower? Thanks so much for listening and for learning with me. Tune in next time while we answer a few more amazing questions from all of our wonderful Madrichim and Chanichim. And if you've got a question that you didn't get a chance to ask over the Kayitz, but you'd like to ask now, just send me an email. I look forward to hearing from your question and learning with you soon.